We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in, everybody, to It's Official, the Tuesday after Christmas, which means it's the day after opening day at Santa Anita. And Jeff, the Great Race Place was great again yesterday in your backyard. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk with First Bet. Welcome back in, and we're going to talk a lot about Santa Anita's opening day during the course of the show.
It was fun. I'm telling you, other than maybe the Breeders' Cup, this was Santa Anita in its glory and the way I remembered it when I first came to Santa Anita back 100 years ago. Actually, technically, it was actually about 60, if you want to know the truth. But it was fun because they had 41,000 people. And sometimes you see these attendance numbers inflated. Mm-hmm. Trust me, it was 41,000. It was crowded. They had people sitting in seats that hadn't been sat on in 30 years up in the top. They opened it up because there was such an overflow. The grandstand was packed. The apron was packed. The lines, unfortunately, for food were packed too. I think they kind of underestimated how many people were going to show up, and it was just a fun day and great racing. And most of the people, believe it or not, stayed almost the entire day. I left after the last race, and it took a while to get out of there. I tell you, in a good way. It was just I think people who went there came away thinking this was fun. I'm going to come back. I hope so anyway.
The younger people in the game, they always ask questions, why do they do it this way? Why do they do it that way? And it came up, I don't know, a couple months ago, but why is the feature race always the next to last race on the card? And I said, well, because in the old days, it allowed people to leave and traffic to not all flow out at the same time. Exactly. You could get out after the 9th race and not everybody leave after the 10th. So some people left after the feature. Some people stayed for the finale. It's good to have those problems back on track. And in this week's 5 topics that we tackle in It's Official, we're going to start right off the top with what it was a throwback Monday yesterday in Arcadia at Santa Anita. You mentioned the on-track attendance, 41,446, the largest crowd in the last 6 years at Santa Anita. Jeff, they bet $26.3 million. That was $3.3 million more than was ever bet on an opening day at Santa Anita. 3.3 million more. It was up over last year. A lot of factors for that. Certainly having the calendar fall our way this year. It played a contribution to the great day at Santa Anita with Christmas on a Sunday, the 25th. That made the 26th an observed holiday for a lot of people in terms of where they work around the country. And a lot of people were off in Southern California on Monday, the 26th this year and able to get out to the track, and they did in droves.
You mentioned the handle of $26.3 million. But on track, 41,000, but they only bet 3.1 on track. Now, you might say, well, that's not a good number. No, I think it's a great number, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people came, not necessarily a hardcore bettor. There were a lot of families out there, lots of kids. They weren't there to bet. They were there to get exposed to something that maybe they had never seen before, and probably had a lot of, a good time, I'm sure. And Santa Anita did a great job of having entertainment in between races. It's not like when you and I, started going to the races. We'd find our way to the paddock. We were there to work, right?
That's right.
But there were people there were just they infield and all that, and the music they had. People were not bored. I can tell you that. At least the people that weren't the hardcore people, and they'll come back. So I thought it was a congratulations to the management who put on a great show. Also, again, the weather was fantastic, what it usually is on the day after Christmas, and at least here, I should say. And then the racing was spectacular. Congrats to the racing office for putting together a tremendous card. Great gambling card. The track, the main track, was as fair as you could possibly have it. The final times were normal. They weren't too fast or too slow. They got that right. The grass course was just pristine. It was just a beautiful grass course, which you'd figured they'd be able to do with no recent racing. I can't think of anything about yesterday that wasn't A+. And as someone who was on track and enjoyed it all throughout the day, I just again, it was a throwback for me because I've got something to throw back to. A lot of people
Right.
don't have that reference point. But anyway, I just hope that this momentum that they created on opening day can carry on for a while. It's a 6-month meeting, and there are going to be ups and downs, but at least initially, I think people are going to enjoy racing at Santa Anita and come back hopefully quickly.
The stars were out. Frankie Dettori in his return voyage to Santa Anita won 3 races on the card. You see his famed flying dismount there. That was money well spent on Frankie Dettori, I think, to get him to come to Santa Anita here off the start. We'll see how it continues for the meet, but a great start for him. And, of course, Hall of Fame trainer Bob Baffert, 5 winners on the card. He won the three of the major stakes races. He swept the grade 1s for the dirt horses. Really a big day for Baffert in there with Dettori. It's an interesting combination between those two. You got one of the more popular jockeys in the world and one of the more polarizing trainers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They make for strange bedfellows, but they were successful bedfellows on opening day. How do you see that working throughout the course of the meet, Baffert and Dettori?
Oh, he'll use them for sure. But Bob can use anybody. He'll use Johnny V. Vasquez, he'll be using him as well. The funny thing about Frankie, he was interviewed on TV after one of his races wins, and he talked about being back at Santa Anita, where he first started as an apprentice long time ago. But during the course of the interview, he said something to the effect was, I can't believe the crowd here. Look at this great crowd. This is a jockey talking about it. So even he was pretty darn impressed. And I mean, he'll certainly be very successful. He'll be in high demand. And I hope that, that people respect and enjoy his greatness in his swan song.
And for Santa Anita to continue this momentum from opening day, again, we talked 26.3 million. Now, the first Saturday, Sunday of the year, the past couple years, you're looking at about a $13 million handle each of those days. So about half of what we saw on opening day. If they can hit above that 13 million level, it's a great sign for the meet. We know that all the factors lined up, right? The weather, the calendar, the racing schedule with so many great races. It all lined up for a beautiful and perfect opening day. If Santa Anita can top 13 million Saturday and Sunday each day this weekend, that's a really good sign for a bounce into the meet. But a one-day indicator, Jeff, it could not have gotten off to a better start.
Well, the product was great. I mean, that's part of the equation, especially with the gambler.
Right.
You get 10 races and 4 stakes with 5 horses and 3 to 5 shots in every race. You're not going to get that handle. They really worked hard to make sure that they had a full complement of runners in each of these races. Maiden races are always good early in the year. So as far as that goes, it was a perfect storm. But I have a question for you now, Jeremy, and that is the day after Christmas has been a staple for Santa Anita's marketing for as long as I can remember. The present you open the day after Christmas.
Yep.
But they don't. I didn't see a whole lot of marketing, a whole lot of television advertising. I'm not sure how much money the budget called for with regards to promoting this. It almost kind of promoted itself. And I'm wondering whether or not in the future, and I know that tradition is important. I'm not a big tradition guy. I realize that there are people who think that tradition is important, and maybe some of it, sometimes it is. But I'm wondering if Santa Anita, because of the Monday opening and they saw what this kind of day would do, whether or not they should forego opening day when it comes the day after Christmas, say on a Tuesday, which it will be next year. Next year, the day after Christmas is a Tuesday when people are working. It's the holiday's done. People are off yesterday because they got the Christmas day off on Monday. What should they consider from now on opening only on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a Monday? Is that something that they should consider next year to try to start off with the kind of momentum that they did this year, or not?
Yeah, well, like if you're still tying to the Christmas holiday, you've got enough days in the year. I don't think it could work out against you. You could go the first Saturday after Christmas on any calendar year, still hit it at the end of December, and you're starting on a big day,
Right.
and something that's easy to promote. You see how good it was here. We're kind of in a copycat world, right? I mean, all the stars aligned right here, and we saw how good it was. So if you can make the stars align every year by doing it the first Saturday after Christmas and doing kind of a 2-day opening run like that, Saturday, Sunday, might be something to look into. I mean, I don't think there'd be a big argument against that because you're going to, how long does it take? 7 years to get back to where it's going to be like this again, where Christmas falls on a Monday, right? So, I mean, yeah, I think like part of like tradition and people knowing something is the wordage, the verbiage of it, right? The first Saturday in May, things like that. People remember that sort of thing. So if you have an easy way of letting people know when opening day is, it probably wouldn't be that hard to start a tradition. So the first Saturday after Christmas every year, instead of the day after Christmas, is it's just as easy to remember. Then I think that might be something that can be looked at because this absolutely worked. There's no question about it. What we saw Monday. So however they can best replicate that is the plan moving forward in my eyes.
Well, we'll find out. I mean, they raced yesterday. They're not racing again until Friday. They wouldn't lose those middle week days anyway. They're not using them. So if you start off on a Saturday or maybe even Friday on, because people will take off early on Friday if you have a Christmas weekend or that. I mean, it's something that you can try it next year. See if it works. If it doesn't, what's the big deal? I can guarantee you whatever they do, they're getting more than they're going to get on Tuesday next year. So anyway, so that's something to think about. And they've been aggressive at Santa Anita lately. I like the people that are running the show there. And I'm sure they'll consider everything. But again, to finish out the segment, marvelous day. If you were there yesterday at Santa Anita, I'm sure you have great memories, especially if you won some money. That's part of it too.
Right. The big event remains alive and well in horse racing in 2022. Almost all the big events had big events, and Santa Anita's opening day kind of closed the door on the big events for 2022. And now, as for on the track, we go to our second topic. It was Taiba in the Grade 1 Malibu. He has an outside chance of working his way into the 3-year-old championship with a victory in the Run Happy Malibu on Monday, and he did just that.
Quarter of a mile to go, Forbidden Kingdom, Taiba and Straight No Chaser, 3 of them across the track as they turn for home. Taiba between horses, Straight No Chaser running the race of his life. These two will arrive at the 8th pole together. Hoist the Gold is finishing with interest on the outside. So is Nakatomi, a 16th to go, and Taiba starts to pull away late. It's Taiba, absolutely terrific in winning the Run Happy Malibu by 4 widening lengths. Forbidden Kingdom was second. Then it was Hoist the Gold in front of Nakatomi. The running time, a crisp 1:21.75 seconds.
So for Taiba, Jeff, he started the year in grand fashion. He started this year, or he ended the year in grand fashion. He started the year in total obscurity. Didn't debut until into February, March, I believe it was actually, until he got to the races. And then just that one start before the Santa Anita Derby, everything from him has kind of been, second quarter forward, but he's had an outstanding year. Your thoughts on the Malibu, first off, Straight No Chaser was running the race of his life and just had the heart ripped out of him in the middle of the stretch as Taiba rebroke. I mean, that's just kind of the difference in performances and class in that particular case. And Straight No Chaser ended up off the board in there. We saw Forbidden Kingdom kind of get the visual re-rally, if you will, to run second in there. An interesting running of the Malibu Stakes where there was no question about the winner.
106 Buyer, legitimate number for the winner, and Taiba shook off a couple of fast My Racehorse horses, Forbidden Kingdom and Straight No Chaser teammates there. And Straight No Chaser broke running, and he could have gone on with it, but they grabbed him because they didn't want him to go head and head with Forbidden Kingdom. And then finally they turned him loose. That's going to be a decent sort of colt if this race didn't fry him. I'm talking about Straight No Chaser. He wound up just beating 2 horses, but it was all in the last 50 yards or so. I think he's going to be just fine, especially for Cole, who only had 3 starts. But Taiba took heat. He was between horses, not the easiest of trips, shook clear and one going away. He's now undefeated around 1 turn, 2 for 2. But Taiba, I think there's no question he'll stretch out. Now the question is, where does the connections go with Taiba? They've obviously got designs on perhaps Middle Eastern racing, but they've got other plans like with Country Grammar. So we'll find out and see how that works out. But I like Taiba. Whether or not this is good enough to gain enough votes to make him champion 3-year-old is, I'm not sure about that. But if you wanted to defend him in court, so to speak, you would have a pretty good argument to be made. I'm not sure whether it'll work, but you look at the main contenders here, Jeremy, with Taiba with 3 Grade 1 wins. Epicenter, who is certainly the leader in the clubhouse, only has the 1. Rich Strike's got the Derby, but nothing else. And then if you want to consider modern games, he looks decent as well. But to me, it boils down to the top 2. And I thought about this, Jeremy. First of all, I want to get your take, and then I'll tell you what I have to say about it.
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. Then I was going to ask you.
You wanted my take?
I wanted your take first, but I'll go first if you want me to.
No, that's first. The one thing I like about Epicenter in the argument between the two is the 3-year-old championship. This isn't champion older horse. This isn't champion sprinter. The 3-year-olds are set to peak in June for the Belmont Stakes, right? It's up till June through the Belmont, and then we come back for the Travers. Epicenter was the best 3-year-old through the races where the 3-year-olds were expected to be at their best. Then the only race he had where he finished out of the top 2 was when Epicenter was injured in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So let's just kind of take that off his resume. He never misfired, right? I mean, I have it down here. Epicenter's, where's my deal? He is 2 lengths away from being undefeated for the year. His 3 losses were by a combined 2 lengths in the races he ran second, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and then earlier in the year in the LeCompte. He never misfired. As for Taiba, when you're making a head-to-head argument, again, I have 3 Grade 1s to 1. I get that if you want to argue the Grade 1s. But Taiba's 3 most important races of the year were his 3 worst finishes. The Kentucky Derby, the Haskell, and the Breeders' Cup Classic were his 3 losses. He did not win any of his 3 biggest races on his resume. Now you could say the same thing. Like, we got one of the big 3 for Epicenter. He won the Travers, and then he was second in the Derby and the Preakness, again by less than 2 lengths combined in those 2 races. So I because of the time of the year, if you want to make the same argument on resume, we'll put the resumes back up here again. If you want to make the same argument in any other division other than the 3-year-old Colts, I could see somebody saying Taiba deserves it. He has the better resume. He had the better year with those Grade 1s. But the 3-year-old Colts are different because it's about being ready for the Triple Crown. If the 3-year-old championship was about the end of the year, then maybe Epicenter doesn't run in those races earlier in the year, right? And maybe he racks up other races throughout the course of the campaign. He's fresher for the Derby, and that because he's going for a second half campaign. So I think the calendar puts it in Taiba's court or in Epicenter's court. And again, with Taiba, the 3 most important races he ran in, he lost this year. The Haskell, the Kentucky Derby, and the Breeders' Cup Classic were his 3 most important races. He didn't win any of those 3. So that's why I would give the slight lean. But if you wanted to take Taiba, I would not go kicking and screaming out of the voting booth.
Well, I got to say that your logic is spot on. You have to give greater emphasis on performances during the classics. That's what 3-year-olds are pointing for. That's what they're bred to be. Those are the most valuable races you can have. A Grade 1 win in the Derby, Preakness, or Belmont is, to me, a lot more important than a Grade 1 win in the Pennsylvania Derby. That's just how I look at it. Yeah. And if you look at the scoreboard, each have 4 wins this year, 3-1 in Grade 1 wins for Taiba. But Epicenter earned $2.8 million to $1.9 for Taiba. Epicenter had placed in 2 classic races. Taiba did not. So to me, I thought it was going to be hard for me to come up with this conclusion, and it turned out it was easy as pie. Mm-hmm. Epicenter absolutely over Taiba, and that's how I think. And I think the voting is going to reflect that too.
Yeah, and there's going to be some kickback and brushback on Baffert. That's going to be with some of the voters.
Part of it,
right? It's human voters. It's not. not Taba the horse's fault. Anything else happened in the past, but it's, if it were just a point system like the NASCAR points chase or something like that, then we would determine the champion based off of that, and then there would be no human factor. But if you are going to have a human poll, just like voting for the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, those guys would like to talk to you about the Hall of Fame over Fred McGriff and some other people who were in the Hall of Fame this year. So if you put the human factor in there, the human factor is not going to help Taba. That's just the reality of it. And then we made the case strictly based on resumes and the importance of the 3-year-old races. And we think that it's Epicenter anyway. Then you put the human factor in there. I think it'll be Epicenter in a fairly comfortable vote. But Taba will be clearly second. And then it's down to Modern Games or Rich Strike. We'll see who gets on the ballot. I think the final 3 make the ballot.
Should be Modern Games.
Make the nominees. Yeah, there wasn't enough Rich Strike other than the Kentucky Derby. So I think Modern Games would be the 3rd horse on
One
that.
Hit Wonder,
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk more about Santa Anita's big opening day on Monday on the racetrack. And it was the stablemate of Taba, his name, Country Grammar, doing his LeBron thing. Jeff Siegel, what do you mean by that?
Well, no one, I don't think, is ever going to remember Country Grammar as being a great horse. I mean, he's a good horse, obviously. But he's going after a record, just like LeBron's going after Kareem's all-time NBA scoring record. Yeah. Country Grammar next year, if he's in training, and why wouldn't he be? He's not. Yeah. Nobody cares about him as a stallion. He's got a chance to become the all-time richest horse in history. Arrogate holds that as we speak over. Does anybody really remember Thunder Snow, Mishriff, and then Gunrunner, who's obviously good? But Country Grammar at 11.2 million. If he goes over to Saudi Arabia and Dubai, based on what's out there right now, he could easily become the number 1 horse. And I think that might be the goal that they have. Again, as a non-brilliant son of tonalist, there's not going to be a real high demand for him. He might as well stay in training. He might as well be a gelding, for crying out loud, although I'm sure Country Grammar doesn't want to hear that. But the point is that Country Grammar, he's worth far more on the racetrack than he is as a stud. And that's unusual. That's usually a form reversal. So look, his win the other day, yesterday, was good. Not brilliant, but he's thoroughly professional and genuine, and he'll ship. And I think he's got a chance to rack up the big bucks again next year.
Dubai World Cup worth $7 million to the winner based on last year's purse. That alone would put him up to 18.2 and make him number 1. The Saudi Cup's worth $10 million to the winner, which would blow it out. And if he wins both of them, add $17 million to there, Jeff. He's at $28 million, and he's laughing at everybody.
Right. Exactly.
Let's go back and take a look at his win this weekend in the San Antonio at Santa Anita. It's Country Grammar with pretty much ease.
They have a 1/4 mile to go, and Country Grammar starts to strut his stuff, pouncing on Stiletto Boy and turning for home in command. Country Grammar suddenly 3 in front. Stiletto Boy in second, followed by Haywood's Beach and Breakfast Ride, a 16th to go. And Country Grammar overwhelms the competition in the San Antonio under Frankie Dettori. It's Country Grammar by 4 easy lengths. Stiletto Boy second, Haywood's Beach, and Breakfast Ride.
We turn our attention now to our 4th topic this week on the big board. It's official. We're going to start a Triple Crown tracker each week because my countdown to the Crown Series each year starts with December 26th racing as we look at all the major 3-year-olds between now and the end of the Triple Crown Series. And we are past December 26th, and we had a couple good 3-year-olds to watch in action at Fairgrounds on Saturday. We also had one at Santa Anita we'll take a look at in our next segment. But, Jeff, let's go to the Gunrunner Stakes and see how Jace's Road pulled it off down there for Brad Cox at Fairgrounds.
Jace's Road and determinedly 1-2 off the turn. 3/4 in 1 minute 12.54 seconds with Raising Cane in third. And the winner is on the far outside, but for Florent Giroux, it's Jace's Road who's finding this final Fairgrounds furlong. Jace's Road leads determinedly by 3.5 with Raising Cane, and the winner is that Hayes Strike. It's Jace's Road. Jace's Road wins here by 5 in the Gunrunner Stakes. Raising Cane snatched second on the line from determinedly. Haystrike 4th, and the winner is 5th. Well clear.
So Jason's Road back on the beam for Brad Cox. It's what you expect in that part of the country as Baffert dominates on the West Coast. In the Mid-South, it's about Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen with their 3-year-olds. Jason's Road is a horse who got back on the beam because he was more well-behaved. He ran off prior to the Street Sense Stakes when he dumped his jockey and ran off and ran poorly. Back on his manners, and he was impressive in this race. What's your take on Jason's Road?
Well, he's good colt, and being by Quality Road, he's going to get nothing but better. The Quality Road is generally at least the colts anyway, more late developing. So I think there's a huge future. The 90 buyer, not great, but good for this time of the year. Nothing wrong with that. He's certainly going to get better numbers as he matures and develops and gets more experience. The only thing is, of course, he made the lead, and we know that when a horse makes the lead, they generally that's the best possible trip you can get, and he went easy, 24-2, 48. So the race shape and the race flow and all that was conducive to a big, easy win, and he got it. I don't know whether he's a need to lead colt or not, but we'll find out soon enough. But in obviously good hands with Brad Cox, and obviously at this stage anyway, a colt that certainly deserves to be considered a major player next winter in the Triple Crown ranks.
Yeah, the Gun Runner Stakes last year was a springboard for Epicenter towards his 3-year-old year. Wow. Jason's Road, though, the damn side, his mama was a turf sprinter, and he's out of a Silver Deputy mare, that turf sprinter we talked about. Silver Deputy's generally 7 furlongs a mile, the kind of distances that you're looking at. So Jason's Road, if he's to do it, the Quality Road on top's going to have to get him a little farther maybe than the bottom side of the pedigree will. Now, a horse who may have stolen the spotlight on that same card at Fairgrounds on Monday on the undercard. It was just 6 furlongs. It's the Sugar Bowl Stakes. We're not known for this one for producing major Triple Crown threats. But I got to tell you, Jeff, Corona Bolt was very impressive for Stone Street Stables. Brad Cox, again, he was absolutely dominant in this 6 furlong sprint. And this is one I like where the pedigree, right? He's by Bolt Doro. He's by Medaglia Doro. And, he's out of an AP Indy mare. I mean, there's a lot to like. Or Bolt Doro was by Medaglia Doro. And again, you got an AP Indy mare, Lord at War on the bottom side of this pedigree. There is a lot of damn side pedigree for Corona Bolt to keep running on.
He is a really, really good colt. I mean, he's just a good mover. He won his first start. He came back, was supposed to win this race, and did it like he was supposed to do. 97 buyer number, fast on figs. Being by Bolt Oro and out of a mare by Quiet American, this is a colt that should have no trouble stretching out. He's quick. He made the lead, but he didn't go fast, but he really accelerated. I can't wait to see Brad Cox stretch this one out. Now, he's probably going to want to keep him apart from his other colt, Jason's Road, but this is and from the first crop of Bolt Oro, who's done terrific work as a freshman stallion, and he was a top-class racehorse. He just had the misfortune of having to run against Justify with Bob Baffert training Justify. That's something that no other contender should have to deal with. If he were anywhere else in the country that year, he would have been special. So anyway, I'm very much high on Corona Bolt, and I can't wait to see him stretch out.
Yeah, I mean, you got Brad Cox with horses at Fairgrounds and Oaklawn this time of year for the Spring Classics. So if he's got multiple horses, he'll split them up between those two. And, they're 4-race series at both racetracks too. So you're not going to run them in all the dances. So he can even alternate some, and eventually they'll have to separate. But it's good to have options, and Brad Cox certainly has 2 of them based on what we saw in our Triple Crown tracker this week. Jason's Road, the winner of the Gun Runner, and Corona Bolt, they're very, very impressive. I think more impressive of the 2, winner of the 6 furlong Sugar Bowl. Our 5th and final topic each week on It's Official, since back at Saratoga and Del Mar, has been the Stars of Tomorrow. We're looking for first-time starters, maidens, horses like that coming out of the shadows a bit into popularity, and horses that you want to watch out for. Well, Faustin had a little bit of ballyhoo behind him, sent off as a big favorite in the career debut, and he did not disappoint on Monday at Santa Anita. Here's the Bob Baffert trained Faustin. Impressive first out.
Quarter of a mile to go, and here's Sonoran looming up strongly on the outside with a wide bid and taking the lead, chased by Faustin, who moves into second. Center of the track, Yellow Brick is starting to find his best stride, and then Vegas Burner, a 16th to go. Faustin collars Sonoran close to home and pulls away. A classy debut effort for Faustin, who pulls clear to win by 3. Sonoran second, tight photo for third between Yellow Brick and Worcester, who was picking it up nicely. Then Vegas Burner to complete the super high 5.
Impressive there, Jeff. What you want to see? The head down, reaching out, just fluid through the wire. Really good looking win for Faustin. Your take?
He got a lot of dirt kicked in his face, and we talked about how when horses make the lead, sometimes they outrun themselves, so to speak. But this colt got 4 or 5 races worth of experience in the first one. We had watched him train, and we thought that maybe he would probably be good enough to win first time out, but he wasn't that quick, or at least in the morning he wasn't. And he was behind horses taking dirt, but that is a high quality racehorse. And a colt being by Curlin, and out of a mare named Hard Not to Like, who was a multiple stakes winner. She won the Diana. She ran on the grass. She ran a mile and an eighth. She was top class and a good family as well, which is why he brought $800,000 in the 2-year-old sale. I mean, they don't give away, they don't give these horses away for nothing. So to me, Faustin won the race like a quality horse, and there's the 89 buyer number is good. There's absolutely no chance that he's not going to be better routing than sprinting. And we'll just have to see how ambitious that Bob wants to get early on. It's a long time. We're going to have to deal with that. Bob can't. You can't run a horse in the Derby. You can't get points if he's training him and all that. Same thing we had last year. So that's going to be an issue. You got a colt this good. You're going to want him running the Kentucky Derby. That's just what it is, Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen down the road. They'll cross that bridge when they get to it. But in the meantime, Faustin is definitely a player. No, there's no doubt about that. And I can't wait to see him eventually stretch out and see how good he will be.
Yeah, maybe the Bob Lewis would be a good spot going around 2 turns. They could come back and go San Vicente in stakes ranks and stay around 1 turn. But with his pedigree, like you said, he was probably good enough to win this maiden race going short. But the pedigree says he definitely wants to go long. The Curlin Hard Not to Like genealogy just sets him up to be a router. So maybe we'll see him in the Bob Lewis in February. That would be something that would make a lot of sense. One other horse I want to throw in for our stars of tomorrow's segment, a horse named Banishing for Godolphin and Brendan Walsh. Really impressive 2-turn winner by Go Sapper out of Dowager. This is one who ran faster than the Gunrunner Stakes on the undercard in a maiden race at Fairgrounds on Monday. So Banishing, an extra horse to throw in there in the mix. Godolphin wants to get to the Kentucky Derby. There are a lot of races down at Fairgrounds where Brendan Walsh will be this year. So I think we're going to see Banishing in one of those stakes races. Maybe he comes right back in the Lecomte. Maybe he waits for the Risen Star. But you're going to get to see him get the class test in his 3rd start. This was his 2nd outing and really improved from 1st to 2nd start. Banishing. Beautiful
mover. Again, a horse that made the lead and got the inside front running trip that may have flattered him, but if you watch it from the furlong pole of the wire, you're saying, I don't want to mess with that colt next time out. He's again a Go Sapper and out of a mare by AP&D, as you mentioned. Yeah. And he is a player, another player. We were talking about this after the Breeders' Cup and thinking about, what among those 2-year-olds that ran on Breeders' Cup Day in the Juvenile were going to be, players in the spring classics and before that and all the preps. And I was thinking, I don't think we've seen all of the good ones yet. Yeah. I didn't think we'd see this many good ones December 26th, but there's still a few out there, I'm sure, maybe more than just a few. It's going to be an exciting winter as they all kind of battle to see who rises to the top before the first Saturday in May.
I mean, that December 26th alone may have been as important to the 3-year-old crop as any weekend we've seen, really. I mean, up to maybe the Breeders' Cup, but, even the Breeders' Cup Juvenile a lot of years does not produce horses back towards the Triple Crown Series. So we'll have to see. But December 26th feels like it's going to be a pretty important day on the 3-year-old crop when you go back and start circling, where do these horses first make a little bit of a mark? I think we had a really, really good day yesterday. Now, yesterday, Jeff, as we add our bonus topic sometimes here in It's Official, yesterday was a very good day for the NFL, not a very good day for the National Basketball Association. We've bemoaned so much in horse racing about scheduling and spreading our races out, not running on top of each other. The Nielsen overnight ratings were out. I took a look at them this morning because I was really curious to see. The NBA has owned Christmas Day forever, right? I mean, that's their day the last decade, last 15 years. The NFL happened to be on a Sunday on Christmas Day, and they said, we're going to go ahead and play some games anyway. The NFL outpointed on the Nielsen ratings by a count of 6-1 the NBA. And we were not talking marquee NFL games. I mean, your Rams going up against the Broncos got over a 3 rating, and the NBA was getting 0.5s and 0.6s. The point is the NFL is king on television. And if they want to go on that day, they will dominate that day. And the NBA has to kind of look at their product and wonder if that situation were to arise again, are we scheduling properly? We talked about this with Santa Anita's opening day. What's the best day to open? We have the same thing in horse racing. When a big established racing event is on the calendar, the little guys have got to pull back. They're not going to be able to compete. The NBA can't compete with second-tier NFL games. And the NBA on Christmas Day tries to match up all their stars, right? It's all their best of the best that they can put out there. And they're getting beat 6-1 by, the Rams and the Broncos.
Well, let me just say this, Jeremy. The Rams are not a second-tier team. They're a third-tier team this year. But you're right. And fortunately for the NBA, and I'm an NBA fan, but I'm also a huge NFL fan. Right. But they don't have to worry about this usually. Right. Once every, with leap year thrown in, maybe once every 6 years. But point is, you're right. And I think this is what horse racing has found out. When they used to have major races both on Saturday and Sunday, and they tried to sell Sunday as well, and you can still do that, but not from September to January. There's no point in bucking it. You can't beat them, the NFL. So what they've done here, what racing has done here, is they've made Sunday basically a Thursday. Right. In terms of the quality of racing. That's reality. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to live with it. Especially now, when you can bet legally on the NFL in many places. So the allure of the only gamble in town doesn't exist anymore. But you're right, and I think you have to be aware of the days that you schedule, and if you're going to go up against the NFL, maybe it's better to, like, for example, I can tell you with Super Bowl day, Santa Anita and most tracks are going to run in the morning. They're not going to run in the afternoon trying to buck the Super Bowl. Just got to be real about it. But it's okay. I'm a fan of both NBA, and I don't think I watched, except for the Lakers getting crushed, I didn't think I watched many NBA games on Christmas. But your point is well taken.
Schedule. Get your place where it can get the most eyeballs and the least amount of competition. And I think we'd all be better off for that. That's going to wrap up this edition of It's Official. What a great day yesterday at Santa Anita, and so many good performances on the racetrack amongst young horses, older horses, existing 3-year-olds to be. Exciting day. It was a springboard day towards 2023. And when we come back next Tuesday, Jeff, it will be 2023. We'll have our New Year's weekend wrap up for you. And between now and then, we'll be back on Friday, I guess, this week to preview a huge weekend of racing. Entries already out for Saturday and Sunday at Gulfstream Park, where I believe there are 9 or 10 stakes races over the course of the 2 days. A lot of graded stakes. Colonel Liam back in action. So a lot to look forward this weekend, and we'll preview it all on our First Call podcast on Friday.
And good weather. Check the weather. Hopefully it holds, but it looks like it'll be good, solid weather for Gulfstream Park. Looking forward to diving in on that card, because it's supposed to rain today here in California, and then maybe again on Saturday. So we'll hopefully get the rain out of the way, and we'll see how the cards, if they are affected. Maybe we'll look a little closer at Gulfstream next weekend too. So, but anyway, great racing coming up. Great bowl games coming up. Yeah. Good luck to the Sooners. Good luck to the Bruins. And good luck to Tulane, by the way.
We'll still read against USC throughout.
Yeah, well, I mean, we both have a vested interest in that, I think.
I think that's absolutely correct. That'll wrap up this edition of It's Official. On behalf of my partner, Jeff Siegel, my dog, Graham, who you heard through part of the broadcast today, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We'll be back on Friday to preview the weekend stakes races. Good luck, everybody.